Well, 2 weeks ago, we started our new series, Bearing Much Fruit. And we learned that in order to bear the fruit of the Spirit, we must first be filled with the Spirit of God in our lives. In fact, if the Spirit is not directing and in control of my own life, then it's impossible to produce His fruit. The fruit of the Spirit is a direct product of the Spirit-filled life. So anything I try to produce out of my own effort and my own being is artificial. And we looked at the first three traits: love, joy, and peace. Learned that love stems from the very character of who God is. It's a love that is undeserved on our part and also steadfast and without boundaries in its action. How did you do this past 2 weeks, simply paying attention to others or even sharing your faith? We also learned that genuine joy is experienced when we abide in Christ, abide with the vine. So when difficulties and hardships come our way, our joy isn't taken away because we are connected to the joy of our salvation, Jesus Christ. Did you experience joy these past weeks when you worshiped God either individually or corporately? Or did discontentment with either a situation or a person rob you of your joy? How about peace? Were you able to experience that this week despite the busyness or the stress or the coworker you typically don't get along with? Tonight we're going to look at the next three traits: patience, kindness, and goodness. Just like love, these traits come from the very nature of God. And so if we are abiding in Him, they will naturally flow out of us. In Exodus 34:6, we read, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet He does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children and their children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation. 2 chapters before this, Moses goes up to Mount Sinai to meet up with God and get the stone tablets which have God's commandments written on them. And when Moses finally goes down to deliver to the people, what does he see? There's a party going down there. The people are worshiping and dancing around a golden Chick-fil-A cow. And so there's Moses watching the people of God disgrace themselves. God saved them from slavery in Egypt. They were free, and God was putting the finishing touches on the covenant agreement between Him and His people. And how do they use that freedom? By becoming slaves to idolatry and disgracing themselves in ways that even their enemies would consider wicked. But the story doesn't end there. Moses, he returns to the mountaintop, and there's going to be a second chance at covenant. And God draws closer to Moses this time by allowing Moses to at least see his back, and by telling Moses his name, a declaration of who he is. The Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, and forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. You know, these characteristics are repeated many times over and over in the Bible. We see it in the Psalms and also with the prophets like Joel and Nehemiah and Ezra. And in our wickedness, God does not abandon us. Why? Because the Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Another way of saying it is the Lord is patient. And as much as it comforts us to know that about God, that God is patient with us, it challenges us when we know that we have to do the same thing. We need to be patient just as God is patient. And if we're to be patient like God, that means being compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. How's that going for us? And that's what it means to be patient. But why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult for us? I think one reason is because we are a culture of the quick fix rather than the long haul. In every area of our lives, we are often committed to the quick fix, and especially when it comes to our faith. I want to grow as a Christian, and I want to do it now. Now, God saves us instantly, but salvation, it lasts for eternity. Some of us want to cultivate the fruit of the Spirit right now or at the end of the season. Put up the next picture there, Nathan. Olive tree farmers know a lot about patience. Did a little bit of reading about this. An olive tree will only start to bear fruit in its 5th or 6th year and doesn't reach maximum yield until it's probably 30 or 40 years old. When the olive growers in the Middle East plant an olive tree, they say a prayer. They pray, God, protect it, make it grow so that my children's grandchildren will benefit from its abundance. That's patience. I think another reason why patience is so hard with us is because we are obsessed with speed and productivity. And because of that obsession, some olive trees have been forced to yield maximum harvest in 5 to 6 years. Now think, is that so we can have better olives? Or is it to make more profit more quickly? Our obsession with speed and productivity is rooted in greed. And I think that's contrary to what patience teaches us. Our obsession with speed and productivity has even put our faith on the clock. We want to attend to all of our spiritual needs in 1 or 2 hours a week. Going to a church service on Sunday, going to a midweek service on Wednesday or Tuesday. God help us. The church has sometimes catered to this fixation with productivity. There's a church in Orange County, California. I won't name the church, but they have a slogan. They say, give us 90 minutes of your time and we will change your life. Wow. That's a huge step. That's actually better than what Jesus said, because he told us that we need to take up our cross daily and follow him for the rest of our lives. So if I can go to that church and be changed in just 90 minutes, why do I need to follow Jesus? I guess we're that much advanced than Jesus was back in the 1st century, right? I think another reason we are so obsessed it's so difficult for patience is that we regard time as a commodity rather than a gift. Now, people have always had means for telling time in history, but the invention of the mechanical clock or the watch has allowed us to standardize time. Now, we feel what started as a tool has become our master. We are now a tool of the tool. And this is toxic to patience because our lives have become ordered by an unnatural rhythm instead of the rhythms of God's created order. What happened? God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the 7th. Do you see how God built patience into the natural rhythm of the created order? He gave us the lights in the heaven to order the times and the seasons, but we've invented artificial light and weather so that we can order time our way. And we are more impatient and stressed out than ever. Think about it. What is the most common response you get to the question, how are you doing? Busy. A lot of times that's how we respond to that question. And this busyness has changed the way we view time. It's a commodity, not a gift from God. We hoard it and we sell it. And the language we use with time in our culture is really unique. We spend time, we invest time, we waste time, we steal time, and take time up. We have invented the concept of quality time as an excuse to spend less time with people. We are apologetic of intruding on one's time, and we are disturbed sometimes when others want to take some of our time. Why? Because we all have the sense that there is precious little time, but more because we regard time as my time my day. It's mine. Now, how does that make us patient? How does that help us cultivate the spirit among us that is compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in love? If we want to cultivate patience, we must actively resist those powers that make us impatient. I think one way we can do that is by giving away our time in worship and in fellowship and in service. Time is a gift from God. We are destined for an eternity, so time isn't something scarce for God. Spend time with him in worship. Worship with others. And let's come to the table as if we are coming to a banquet together, and not like we're having fast food carryout. Let's spend time with one another for no other reason than to know one another. If we spend time in service with others, do it just to serve others, not to be more productive. Also, we should appreciate the journey as much as the destination. Our impatient culture wants to convince us that the end product or the destination is all that matters. The quicker you arrive there or produce it, the better. When I was touring with a music team at Cedarville, we'd spend hours upon hours in our van traveling to church, state to state. But on the road, you get to see the sights. You get to just enjoy the beauty of God's creation sometimes. The journey is as much a part of that trip as the destination. In some ways, even more so. When we read the stories of the patriarchs in the Bible, we see that the journey is even more important than the destination, because the goals weren't always achieved in one generation. All in the Old Testament, Israel was promised the Messiah, and many of them lived a life of faith in God, despite not seeing the Messiah, who would come hundreds of years after their deaths. I think another way we can cultivate patience is just simply trusting the future to God. I think much of our impatience is rooted in the fact that we don't trust the future to God. We've forgotten the stories. God doesn't abandon us. He doesn't leave us with a set of Lincoln Logs or Legos and say, hey, build it yourself. He's working in the details to accomplish all things in his own time and his own way. That's patience. Next is kindness. What do you usually think about when you think about kindness? Maybe it's opening the door for others, or being nice to the cashier at the store. Maybe it's leaving a generous tip for your waiter or waitress. Maybe it's even sending a thank you card to someone. All of these are good things. And I think typically kindness is equated with being polite or nice. But think of the fruit of the Spirit and ask yourself, is kindness just being nice and polite, or is there even more to it? Kindness in Scripture is more often equated with love. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one, since we talked about love in the 2 weeks ago. But the word for kindness in Hebrew and Greek is interchangeable with mercy, goodness, loyalty, faithfulness, but most of all, steadfast love. Kindness is the visible action of love directed towards others. God is praised for being kind, for showing his steadfast love in so many ways. There's an example in the Bible of a mortal like you and me putting the kindness of God into practice. Someone open up to 2 Samuel and go to the 9th chapter. 2 Samuel chapter 9.